Boy, am I glad I waited before I did this review. This is the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, and full disclosure, I did not pay for this. Sometimes when you do a gig, you get paid in money. Sometimes when you do a gig, you get paid in swag. So 2 weekends ago, when Keith Chow of the Nerds of Color and I did our Today at Apple session at the Carnegie Library in Washington, D.C., they got a new Apple store there. They opened it last month. It's amazing. Anyway, we did a session on teaching kids how to tell their origin stories through comics. During the workshop, the kids were all going to get their own iPads to draw on and share their work with the rest of the group. And the comics that they came up with were fantastic, as you can imagine, from kids drawing comics. It was amazing. It was a great time. But they also wanted to give Keith and I a chance to have some experience with the iPad. So they, and I thought, you know, we were borrowing them and gonna have to return them and stuff. So they gave us these iPad Pros so we could learn how to use Procreate and all that kind of stuff. So I spent like a couple weeks learning Procreate before we did the session with the kids so that I was kind of sort of up to speed and didn't look like a complete idiot when I was demonstrating how to draw comics in front of them. Later came to find out that we get to keep them. This review or these thoughts about the iPad Pro are not sponsored by Apple. They didn't ask me to do this after the session or to review the hardware or any of that. People had been asking me about the iPad Pro ever since I got one, so I thought I would share my thoughts here. And before this past Monday when Apple had their developers conference, this was gonna be a much different review. There was gonna be a lot of caveats at the end. You know, I was gonna go through all the different types of creators who could use this iPad Pro with many, many caveats at the end because using the file system is terrible. All your files are on the apps, which is kind of cool because you don't have to worry about saving or losing your progress if you accidentally turn the iPad off. But it makes it difficult to share with other people if you work in a studio setting or if you work as a freelancer and need to hand files off to other people. Getting files off the iPad is a pain in the ass. Getting files onto the iPad is also a pain in the ass. You have this USB-C port, but you can't do shit with it. Well, they fixed all that. In September, we're getting iPadOS, and that is going to activate this USB-C port. So you'll be able to plug in all sorts of devices. You'll be able to plug in your USB sticks, your USB drives, and even these cameras. So you can go direct from the USB into here and sync shit directly to Lightroom instead of having to dump all the photos into your photos and then into Lightroom and all that kind of stuff. So many of the complaints that I had before, you know, Monday, that this device wasn't exactly a laptop replacement, they've all been addressed. Now, I'm not a developer, so I don't have the beta of iPadOS, and honestly, I wouldn't know what to do with it because I use the software, I use the hardware, but I don't know much beyond that. So like, I don't know how to code stuff, and I don't know, like, this isn't gonna be about tech specs because that's not me. And you can read about them if you're really interested in the tech specs. But that all sounds amazing. So I can't wait for September, and I'll just deal with all the problems that I have with this until then. So the question I kind of want to answer with this is, what type of creator is the iPad Pro useful for? It's a very terrible sentence. But yes, what type of creator is the iPad Pro for? Now, if your job consists of writing scripts or blogging or typing of any kind or sending emails, answering emails, if you're into social media, like if that's your job, tweeting and stuff and taking selfies and shit like that, I mean, I think any iPad can handle that. Any iPad can replace a laptop for that type of user. I mean, not only do you get the ability to type on the screen and all that kind of stuff, but you have this beautiful screen that you can watch movies and YouTube on. So like, if your laptop requirements are not that extensive as a creator, I think any pad can replace whatever laptop you're using. If you do type for a living, I recommend a case with a keyboard attached. Apple sells their own fancy schmancy one that hooks into this sucker right here, so you don't have to worry about charging it and all that kind of stuff, and it powers it on. I don't like that keyboard. I've tried it in the store. It's one of those low profile things, and the keys are kind of so I got the Logitech one. I like a little travel with my keys, so this is a basic keyboard, but I like having keys that I can actually push down. This does require charging, but they say look, it lasts for months before you have to charge again. But the nice thing about this case is it wraps around the entire iPad, and it has this little latch here that's magnetic that closes and wraps around the pencil. I love the pencil. We'll talk about that. So yeah, I got this Logitech case. There are a whole bunch of other cases with keyboards. And come September, you can plug in external keyboards to your heart's desire. So if you have a really great gaming keyboard, you can type away with that. So yeah, if you write for a living, sure, get an iPad, get any tablet device. It doesn't matter. You can watch movies, you can type, whatever. It's great. I don't like the on-screen keyboard because it takes up a whole lot of real estate, which is why I use a case. If you are a vlogger and you're not too fiddly about getting a camera and a microphone and all that kind of stuff, sure, you can use an iPad Pro. I don't edit video on this because I prefer editing video with a mouse, which you can do in September. Jesus Christ, all of my complaints, they're addressing. But yeah, I prefer editing with a mouse, but I've seen a lot of people use an app called LumaFusion, and that's getting a lot of use for people who are just using their iPads for editing and things like that. So yes, if you are a vlogger, not only can you record with the front-facing camera, I guess you could hold it up to a mirror and see if you're in focus and tap your face and record this way. But this is a lot easier. I did shoot my last video with this thing. The microphones are kind of eh. I prefer a little bit better sound, but there are a whole bunch of external microphones that you can buy that sync to iPad and iOS devices. I'll talk about the Sennheiser thing somewhere. I had to move a bunch of shit, so I don't know where it is, but there are a bunch of microphones that already work with your iDevice that give you better audio when you're recording video. So the video looks pretty good. It's a little mushy, but only if you pixel peep. Don't pixel peep, don't zoom in too much, because all the photos on your iDevices look like baby vomit, just blah. But yeah, if you're a vlogger and you don't really care too much about production, clearly I don't. iPad Pro, you can do everything you need to, upload, edit, all that good stuff. If you are a motion graphics artist and you use things like After Effects to make special effects for movies or video, or even just small title graphics and things like that, I don't think so, but I'm not sure. If you know of a After Effects-like app for the iPad, please let me know. I've done some searching, but maybe I'm searching for the wrong terms. My sense is that there's enough power to do some of that stuff under the hood, but the app makers just haven't caught up. I mean, I think with like LumaFusion and with Premiere Rush, you could do like title graphics and things like that, simple stuff, but like, you know, anything fancier with particle effects, I don't think so. I don't think this is for you. Same thing with 3D. If you're a sculptor, or if you're, you know, making things for games, or if you're making things for collectibles, I don't think the iPad is a good solution. I did see a couple of CAD programs, so that's cool. Maybe like if you're an architect and you're planning things out, you could do stuff like that. But you know, if you're doing anything more sophisticated, like a game character or a statue or toys or anything like that, the apps aren't there yet. Again, I think it could handle it, but I mean, and again, maybe I'm searching the wrong things and I just couldn't find it. All the 3D things I could find, you either scan something, or you know, it gives you a bunch of primitives that you can combine to the same thing, but you can't like manipulate polygons and vertices and anything like that. So, you know, if you're into 3D sculpting, if you are a musician, recording musician or working musician, holy shit, that is a new kind of rabbit hole you can go down. There are so many apps, there are so many devices for music creation, recording interfaces, all sorts of crazy shit for iOS. And I only expect that to expand once iPadOS comes around. Like, There are a bunch of guitar pedal apps. So if you somehow forget your pedal board and you're gigging tonight, you can download the app. You can download all sorts of pedals and switch them out on the fly during your performance. If you have a roadie, or if your iPad is up here on a music stand. I don't know, I've seen some people sing with iPads up here, switching stuff. Like Reason has, I wrote notes. Reason has Reason Compact. So if you're familiar with propeller head Reason, they've got like a mini version of Reason in here that gives you a synthesizer, a beat thing, and a bass part, and you can export that to Reason and then manipulate that and further change it and add more stuff on your laptop. But like, there are so many music creation apps for the pads and for the phones, and it's crazy. I had no idea. Finally, if you are a cartoonist, comic book artist, drawer, is the iPad Pro for you? I think it could be, especially with the new version of the pencil. When the first version of the pencil came out, I knew that they had no artists on staff because the fuck? No. You take that into the wild, you put that in any artist's hand, and when it comes to charging it, they're gonna be like, of course not. I lose my regular pencils. This is gonna fucking break and I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose the stupid little cap. No. That's how I knew they didn't have any working illustrators or cartoonists on staff when they designed that bullshit, because if they did, there would have been loud protests and many angry comments, and people would have said, no, that's fucking bullshit. I don't know who they get to test these things. I think sometimes they need to break out of their tech sphere and search for regular people and give them the device for like a month and say, use it. And they will come back and they will say, no. Fuck no. So I love the new version of the pencil. Pencil 2, it has a nice weight to it. I always felt that the first version of the pencil was a little back heavy or long. I never bothered purchasing one because every time I tested it in the store or with a friend, it just always felt awful. This is such an elegant solution. This magnet thing, it's not sturdy if you're flipping it around like this, but it's great. Charging, it's simple, it's elegant, it feels good, it just slots in. The case I have has a protector for the pencil when it's in there. So this is a great solution if you're a drawer. And there are many apps for drawing on the iPad that are amazing. I'm a big fan of Autodesk Sketchbook. I really like the way they do the pencil tools and some of the markers and the designy stuff and the design aspect of that. I have an old version on my laptop that I still use when I'm asked to do basic concept stuff. I'll sketch it out in Sketchbook Pro because it's nice and quick. And then when it comes time to refine that sketch, I'll dump it into something like Photoshop and clean it up in here. But I love the way Sketchbook works on the iPad Pro. Procreate, of course, everyone loves Procreate. There's something weird about the ink engine in Procreate that's a little loopy, and I don't know how to explain it other than, when you're drawing a stroke, I think the smoothing kind of thinks a little bit more for you than you expect it to, so it kind of feels like you're drawing with rubber bands. And I think that's the best way I can explain it. It's a little awkward. When you're in the middle of the project, you don't notice it as much, but if you're just sticking with it in the store, I noticed it a lot, which made me hesitate on purchasing an iPad Pro. There's also Clip Studio if you absolutely must have a Cadillac drawing program for your iPad Pro. Only problem with Clip Studio is it is not optimized for the iPad, so there's going to be a whole bunch of menus on the side that you're going to have to cycle through because it's just like the desktop app. If you have the desktop app, you can park those extra menus on your other screen if you're working on like a Cintiq or something like that. But on the iPad, it just kind of crowds everything, and it's not really optimized for touch like Procreate is. So Procreate and Sketchbook, they feel like they were made for a touch environment. All the menus are off to the side. They disappear if you want them to disappear. They come back if you want them to come back. It's made for touch. Clips, I don't think it's optimized for touch. So that's That's a struggle, but the inking engine is amazing. Before Kyle brushes got bought out by Adobe and are now free with your subscription, I was using Clip Studio specifically for inking because inking in Clips is a great experience. If you've never had access to a Wacom Cintiq or a similar screen tablet, then you're in for a treat. Inking in Clips feels just like inking with a regular brush, and you know, this pen, the matte feel to it is great. The only other problem with Clip Studio is it's a subscription, but I think $7 per month, whatever that works out to per year. I think you can pay yearly and you get a discount. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into it. I don't use Clips. I think it's a reasonable subscription if you're not already hooked into Adobe's subscription. It always comes back to the subscription. If they made a version that you could buy outright, instant purchase for me. But I'm already hooked into too many subscriptions as it is. Now, this is where the caveats were gonna come in. I was gonna say a whole bunch of shit about, yes, it's great for drawing, but if you ever have to transfer a file to someone else, that's a pain in the ass. If you ever have to get a file from someone else, that's also a pain in the ass. Come September, it's not gonna be a pain in the ass anymore, so you have fewer and fewer excuses as an artist. So yeah, now because it's an Apple product, I feel like we need to talk about price. Now, while I have the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, and it's nice and big, I was able to use the 11-inch for our workshop. And you know, honestly, the 11-inch feels like there's just enough room. A lot of my friends I know draw really tiny anyway. They have these like tiny sketchbooks and they draw even more tiny, and then they scan it into the computer and everything looks huge. So if you are one of those people who draws really small, I think the 11-inch would be just fine. I do like the surface area for this guy. It's the same, I think it's the same drawing area as my Cintiq Companion 2. I didn't bother measuring it until just now, but I think it's pretty similar. So I like the size. Feels good. Drawing with the pencil feels good. I have this screen protector called Paper-like, and if you don't like drawing on glass because it's too smooth and you need a little bit of tooth, a little bit of bite, Paper-like is okay. You're gonna hear a lot of people say, oh, Paper-like feels just like paper. Sure, yeah, it does, but then you get this weird pixely, grainy shit on your immaculate, gorgeous Retina screen. And so you might have to get used to that. And that can be a little bit distracting when you're trying to do some high-end painting or blending and stuff like that. You'll have these little grainy, pixely, crappy things that don't show up when you see it on a bigger monitor. If you need to do something for print, I don't know. I think I'm gonna leave it on here for a couple of more weeks just to see if I get used to the grain, but I'm thinking about taking it off because you have such a gorgeous screen here. Anything that gets in the way of that, you know, the pixelated crap, it's weird. It's noticeable. I didn't think it would matter to me. It kind of matters to me. The Wacom products, when you have a Cintiq, like a drawing tablet or a drawing screen, it's etched glass, and it cuts down the glare, and there's no grain in the etching, so it's just, you know, you get to see the colors. With this, there's a weird grain thing. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but I don't know how much it would take for Apple to come out with an etched glass version of the iPad Pro. That would be my preference, but I don't think that's in the cards. So it's up to you whether or not you want to protect it with something like Paper-like. All right, I wrote this down because I have crap memory. But the 11-inch iPad Pro starts at $799. So the differences are in the storage capacity of the device. So on the 11-inch, the 64 gig version is $799. The 256 gig version is $949. The 512 gig version is $1149, and the 1 terabyte is $1549. So come September, I feel like storage is not going to be a deal. I kind of think the 256 version is the sweet spot. Sometimes you're gonna be creating huge files. Like I have a couple of Photoshop files that are like 180 gig or something like that. And if you were using the 64 gig version, that would kind of not work on your iPad Pro. But since you can dump shit off onto an external hard drive, you know, I feel like 256 is a sweet spot. If you have a ginormous file, you can save it and offload that to an external drive. I don't know if you will be able to save directly to the external drive. Like sometimes when you're working in Photoshop, you might be working on files on a drive and save it directly there. So I don't know how that's gonna work. I guess we'll see. But I feel like 256 for the 11-inch is kind of like the sweet spot. It's close to $1,000. $949 is not cheap, but I feel like you get a lot of computer for your money. The 12.9-inch starts at $999. So the 64 gig configuration is $999. The 256 is $1149. The 512 version is $1349, and the 1 terabyte is $1749. So for both of these, I think you can stay away from the 512 and the 1 terabyte. Again, like 256 is a sweet spot, but $1149 is a little up there, especially if you're a beginner and you're trying to get into digital art. I don't think these are beginner devices, mostly because of the price tag. For the money that you're gonna pay for one of these things, you could probably get a more affordable Surface device that will give you the same thing, except it'll run full Windows and all that kind of stuff. And the other thing is, if you're looking to optimize your money for device, there are a lot of PCs that you can get for the same amount of money that will be upgradable in the future. The thing about the iPad Pro and iPads in general is that you have to absolutely love the hardware as is, because that's all you're gonna get. You can't upgrade this. You can't upgrade the processor, you can't upgrade the graphics or anything like that. Now, with the external storage, you can use this for a long time because you can just keep dumping files. So they've extended the lifetime of the iPad in general, with the ability to plug in external devices. So that's a major positive in my mind. But if you're trying to optimize your money, your bang for your buck, in general, I don't know that Apple is the ecosystem for you. I mean, sure, you get ease of use and you set it and forget it and you don't have to think about such things, but you're always gonna be thinking like, could I have gotten something better for my money? The Pencil 2, and there are other writing styluses that you can get for the iPads. But if you want the thing that it's optimized for, the Pencil 2, this sucker comes in at $129. You get free etching with it, so like you can get your name etched on the pencils. So like, this is mine. I don't understand why they didn't just bundle it with the Pro. Like, why didn't they just bundle this all together and just up the price? I feel like that's a no-brainer, especially if they were trying to market this as a creation device for artists, musicians, editors, all that kind of stuff. Like if you're marketing this as a laptop replacement, put the whole package together. When you buy a Microsoft Surface, you don't then also have to go out and get another fucking stylus. It comes with the fucking computer. I mean, sometimes it's stuck in the computer. So like, I don't know. I feel like there was a couple of missteps when this device initially came out. iOS really isn't suited to replace a laptop. And especially if you have a USB-C port, you want to plug shit into it. And I feel like now they've started to listen to all of the creatives that they were targeting this thing to. Which makes me think that they don't have Joe Schmo freelancer artists on staff to let them know, hey, this is what I use every day. This is what I want in a device every day. I feel like they have a very targeted population of testers, and I don't know, maybe they need to expand it. Just grab regular people, I don't know. So, is the iPad Pro for you? I don't know. This does a lot of shit that I wanted it to do. But honestly, I'm actually looking into getting a PC because, short story, I had a file that I needed to render out. I had a Maya file that I needed to render out, a simple animation, just a couple of camera moves. And I was using Arnold, and I had all the real-time physics and all that kind of stuff, and I was rendering glass, and I set it at midnight, and I went to sleep, and I woke up in the morning, and I got my regular routine, got everything set up, came back to my computer at noon because I knew it was going to be rendering and I was going to give it a bunch of time. I had 240 frames to render. In 12 hours, it had done 12 frames. I needed to do this 3 times because I had 3 different camera angles. And I was just like, I don't have 240 hours times 3 to wait around for this thing to go. So my next computer is going to be a PC because I need the horsepower. But if you're not a 3D artist, if you're not into motion graphics, if you're just looking to have something that's portable and that works well, and if you're an illustrator or a musician, iPad Pro will do you pretty well. Now, this isn't a proper review because I don't have other devices to compare this to. Like, I don't have the equivalent Surface or Android tablets here to compare it to. So take my opinions with many, 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 many grains of salt. Go out there, go to the stores. If you have a Microsoft store near you, or if you have like a Micro Center or like a Best Buy or like a Fry's or something. And if you're interested in getting a portable device for art and creation, do some side-by-side tests. Spend an entire day at the store and test them all out, because you might find that a Surface Book or Surface, whatever they call them, the Microsoft version is better for you. If it's better suited for you, that's great. But test. Don't just go on my recommendations. Honestly, I don't know if I would have purchased this in its current state, because you can't share files with people. After iPadOS comes out, I might have, if I didn't realize that I needed more rendering power, this might have been my go-to drawing device, because this is great. You sit on the couch. When I visited my brother and I needed to do that cover, this would have saved my ass. So if you're interested in the iPad devices or a pad tablet, test them out first if you have the ability to. If you don't have the ability to, check out all the reviews. Look at all the reviews, get all the opinions, go out there and do some research. Don't just go on my recommendations, because I'm a very specific type of artist. I do a little bit of everything. This does most of the things I needed to do, but when it comes to things like ZBrush and Maya, So anyway, I hope this was useful for somebody out there. More importantly, I hope you go out there and try these devices if you have the ability to, and just see what's out there, see what's working, see what else is equivalent to this or better price-wise and all that kind of stuff. And if you have recommendations, please let me know in the comments wherever you see this. Like I said, I don't know what's out there. I have Cintiq Companion 2, which is kind of old at this point. I've got this iPad Pro. So my familiarity with what is out there is not expansive, which makes this a terrible review, because as a reviewer, you should have experience with multiple devices like the Huyans and the Surfaces and Android tablets and all that kind of stuff. So, but those are my thoughts. Please let me know yours in the comments wherever you see this. Thank you for watching and sitting through all of this, and I'll check you next time. Bye!